Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Qatar Airways Grand Prix for what is going to be one hell of a race. It is time to get Season 9 underway for Moose Racing League here with Tier number 5 around the Lusail Airways circuit, and of course, being Qatar, it's planning to be a nightmarishly fun race. It is a track that is hard on tyres, hard on fuel, and, better yet, harder on the drivers. The real-life race may have ended, but the racing does not end here. We will be getting underway with the 16-corner circuit here in the middle of the desert, and I, would you believe, I'm a new commentator. That's right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Fallen Dan, and as you may be able to tell, we are going to be holding a moment of silence because, unfortunately today, due to scheduling conflicts, KissMyX cannot be a part of the Tier 5 commentary team. He will be here for the rest of the season, fortunately, though. But for today, he has passed away, and so a moment of silence, please, for him as we remember the wonderful things that Axe has done. Right, now that we've got that out of the way, it's time to get racing, don't you think, everyone? It is a very controversially fun track, Qatar. A lot of people tend to have their disagreements with it being on the calendar or just really like it. It's a fast-flowing track, not really that many overtaking opportunities apart from the ones you make for yourself, and as we get qualifying underway here in Tier 5, there are a fair few drivers that you may be familiar with. There are maybe a fair few drivers you may have seen in the previous stream a couple of hours ago. We'll get right into that now as I try to find the right scene. I'm still learning here, ladies and gentlemen. Would you believe? Yeah, so here we are at Qatar, as I forgot to set all of this up because I am so smart. And we'll just stick it like this. We are getting out on track, and there are a fair few cars out. The first one, though, will be the AlphaTauri of Vince. And I, of course, as now a proud member of the AlphaTauri team, have to try and remain unbiased here. as much as possible. I don't know if that's going to be possible. I'll be honest with you here. It's that they're good people and there are good drivers in the team. His teammate, of course, today, Bouncy, starts an attempt to try and push up, as for some reason I've lost frames in game. That's a new one. Other drivers in the tier, of course, we've got Toast, we've got the wonderful, there are other Haas drivers, I just can't seem to see them on the list. Knight_4, Rage Quit is here as well, but the ones we're going to be watching out for today, Nikki G, Jim Just Raged, Tolby and Camu. We've seen these drivers be at the top of their game for quite some time, so I would not be surprised to see if they're able to pull off something amazing. But let's transition over here and have a look at the wonderful chat. And how is everything? Is everyone all right? Is everyone having a good day so far? Let's have a look and see what you're all saying. We do miss Axe, yes, absolutely. He is a strong member of the community. He is actually taking part in the Tier 4 race that's going on the other stream in about 15-25 minutes. So if you do want to go check him out and support him there, that would be the place to do it. But Bouncy has retired into the pit lane. Bouncy, of course, serving, I believe, their penalty for a quali ban from last year. Verstappen won. Yeah, well, I mean, Piastri got P2. Swings and roundabouts, basically. But there are a lot of good drivers here. As it appears Vince has been held a little bit on his lap there. I'm not sure if that's Jim or Ducati. They held him up on track, but a very unfortunate turn of events here. Meanwhile, currently Vince, a 27.3 first sector. Knight has beaten it by a tenth. Other drivers on laps now, Nikki G, only a 27.9 in the first sector. We'll be interested to see how he does. Rage Quit also matching in the first sector, just off of camera. So, yeah, we've got a wonderful tool going that allows me to keep track of everything a little bit better this weekend, though it does require me to tab out of the game, which is a little bit awkward considering the monitor setup. But instead, we will be on board with Vince now for the rest of this lap. Can he set a good provisional first place lap? Let's see where this puts him. It is going to be a 122.5. Next driver to cross the line will be Knight, so we'll quickly zoom through to him to see where he goes. He basically matches it almost identically. The next driver will be a little ways off the pace, if I'm remembering correctly. That'll be Nikki G at a 24.3 on those medium tyres. But as everyone else starts to roll through now, we've got Ducati just starting a lap. Rage Quit goes 22.9. Lost it all in the middle sector there. All of that pace. Lost about a tenth and a half in the middle sector. As Jim Just Rage goes provisional pole by going only 1300ths faster than the original time. Other drivers now crossing the line. The Aston Martin's on laps as Angry Shadow has span out. And that's unfortunate. We'll see him there just off to the side. As he is unfortunately retired, he's lost it coming through the end of Sector 3 as Toast goes and sets a 22.2, the first driver to break into the low 22s. Cartman will follow suit, goes 22.3, Golden Drift 22.4, that's now your front three in order. Sign On also in 7th place, the other Aston down in 10th now as everyone is shuffled back by Normbash in the Alpine coming through on his lap. And the Red Bull of Midnight just beginning his first flying lap attempt. Meanwhile, John Does Work is, I believe, coming around on his flying lap. No, never mind. He boxed off of it. It's Omama who's on his flying lap for the Mercedes team. As the Alfa Romeo of Ducati crosses the line ahead of them. I don't think that was Ducati. It might have been Ducati. Omama only 24.2 for him. Bit unfortunate. Not able to improve much. Williams crosses the line. It is Camu. And that's about what we expected from Camu. Goes 21.4. He's one of the drivers to watch today and has proved it already. Benzo Slice, the other Alpine, goes P9 with a 22.8 as the Astons pull into the box. We're looking for other drivers who would be on a lap currently. Nikki G is improving in this first sector. He's just putting in laps to try and get a general sense of the track. Omamo is also improving in the Mercedes. Both drivers up by a considerable amount in the first sector. Both of them not flashing, so it could be two hot laps from them. Meanwhile, there is a Red Bull on a flying lap, and that is Midnight. We'll go and follow him through now for the rest of this lap. Go on board with him as he comes towards the line. He's looking to try and get in amongst that top 6. Will he be able to do so? No, only P9 for Midnight. It's a disappointing lap from him. We're looking to see him try and get up into that top half more consistently, into that top 5 battle. But considering the spread so far, a 22.8 is not a bad banker lap. Now going back to our drivers who we were following at the beginning of their laps. Now at the end of it, Omamo out of battery across the line, goes P4. Meanwhile, the other car of Nicky G sets that 22.6 on medium tyres. A ridiculously good lap considering the situation. Now though, there are other drivers on out laps. I believe there is an Alpine crossing the line. That might be Benzo, either starting a lap or just finished a lap. But one person who did just start a lap is maybe the driver to watch today, Chosen Tolby. The Ferrari driver has impeccable pace, there's an impeccably good helmet as well, and now we'll be looking to see if he can stick it on pole position. We're going to ride on board for this entire lap, and we'll let the car sounds be what you hear. I don't actually think there's car audio, is there? Chat, could you let me know if there's car audio? If there isn't, I'll fix that real quick. Don't think there was. There you go. Now you got cars. Still learning on the job. Either way, we missed the first sector. That's all fine. .54.5. It's a purple middle sector for Chosen Tolby. Can he keep it on the track? He can do so far. Doesn't take a wide line through there. Not carrying as much speed. Might lose a bit of time through there. Now coming through. Can he make it onto the front row of the grid? The expectation is that he will. Can he dethrone Camus? Across the line he goes. No, he can't. And he won't get the front row because Toast's 22.2 will be enough to keep him behind. 0.006 of a second across the line. Very unfortunate there as the Alpine behind him has now, I believe, started a lap. Or potentially is just finishing up a lap. Will be let through either way. Right. Glad there's car sounds now, everyone. I hope you're all having a great day, by the way. If there is anything you want to know or anything you'd like to know about any of the drivers, please ask about it in the chat. I do have it right there. It's right in my face. I can't really miss it. And I say that having completely missed Axe being in chat. Axe, mate, you got to focus on your race. Don't worry about me. You'll be here next week, all right? For now, just make sure you're in the car and you're ready to go. Speaking of ready to go, Marmo has pulled into the pits. He has invalidated his lap. The number 69 Mercedes. Vince, however, is on a lap and is going faster, or was potentially going faster in the first sector, has now matched the middle and has invalidated through turn 13, and therefore this lap does not even matter. Meanwhile, behind him, Knight on a flying lap has now also invalidated, right? That's 2 for 2. Who else is next? The Mercedes. Who is the Mercedes? Is that John Does Work, by any chance? In a 54.4 middle sector, currently on for a potential top 2. Does he have the pace to pull it off? We saw about a tenth up on what Tolby was setting in the middle sector. Seemed to carry more speed in the final one. Across the line he goes, takes the narrowest line possible, goes towards the wall, and will get a 22.2, but barely, hanging on and stealing away first place, or second place away from Toast and Tolby. That is an incredibly tight top 4. Oh, that's good, that. Oh. Right, let's have a better look at the race then, shall we? Now we look at the full top 20 in all their glory. Of course, Angry Shadow crashing out early on, unfortunate for him. Tolby, of course. Oh, sorry, Bouncy having that situation where he wouldn't be able to complete a qualifying run. Meanwhile, Normbash is on a quietly decent lap here. Currently sat in P14 on a 22.7. Half a tenth improvement would put him on the front row. Let's see what he can do, though. Can he improve quite considerably? He can. Puts it P3. 0.46 up on his own lap. Slots it ahead of Cartman on the track for the moment. Other cars are on laps. And speaking of, Cartman is a 10th up. So he is currently pushing to see if he can get into that top 2. That battle as Toast sets a 21.9 in the Haas. Great lap from him. Cartman will go and set a 22.2. Joining the collective unit of cars that have now set a 22.2. But it will not be enough for the front row currently. Just knocks John out of P3. Meanwhile, a Red Bull going slow in the middle sector. Oh, sorry, in the final sector. I believe that is either Golden Drift or Midnight. And I believe it is Midnight starting his flying lap. Behind him, though, was a McLaren of Cartman pitting. And then the Aston following suit. Meanwhile, the Alfa Romeo of Jim Just Raged is on a flying lap, and there is a Red Bull very hot and fast behind him. That, of course, being the Red Bull of Golden Drift. We'll see how these two do. Jim Just Raged. Can he go up the order? He can. Joins the 22.2 club. Golden Drift sets a 21.8. Puts him on the front row of the grid, but again, nothing even remotely close to what Camus has set already in this qualifying session, and now we'll get to see exactly what he is capable of doing. I forgot to get a drink. It's going to be a problem. My throat is going to be shot by the end of this. I might actually go and grab a drink during the the end of qualifying in the little intermediary, if that's all right with chat. Otherwise, I might actually die. Camus, mind, has just gone fastest in the first sector by a full 10th. Meanwhile, there's been a spin. It's the other Williams of Nicky G has gone off at turn 1 on the exit and has now tried to course correct. It's going to end up in the gravel. Unfortunate for him, he now has to be safe on the rejoin. Should have a bit of a gap after the AlphaTauri, but you don't want to sit on the inside of a corner. It's a dangerous place to sit. If a driver just has a snap of oversteer, it could be curtains for them. Anyways, let's go back to the front of the grid. Meanwhile, Cameron's now gone up 2 tenths in the middle sector. So he is on for a potential 21 flat at this rate. Can he keep improving in the final sector? Across the line, he will come, pulls to the right, alongside the board, keeps it off the Astro, holds it in 7th, and doesn't improve. Must have lost it all in the final sector, was up by 2 tenths, coming into the fast right-handers, but not able to make it stick. That is unfortunate for him. Meanwhile, Amamo will be starting his flying lap. He's looking to try and get back in. A 22.4 about 6 minutes ago was good enough for the front 3 rows of the grid. Right now, it is good enough for P9. Very quick evolution of the track. Meanwhile, an Alpine of Benzo Slice just finishes his lap. He set a 22.4 that actually knocks Amamo down to P10. Chosen Tolby to go on board, has just finished the lap. That's put him P4, 22.1. He breaks out of the 22.2 club, which is now becoming a bit of a meme at this point. The fact that there are still 3 drivers in the 22.2 club. I know there are more drivers in the 22.5 club, from Sinone down to Midnight, all on 22.5s. But I think this just shows the nature of this track. It's very hard to gain and lose time all across the board. Now let's see how the AlphaTauri duo are doing. Vince on a flying lap currently. 27.2 in the first sector. Not bad for him. His teammate, of course, starting at the back of the grid after DNFing. Now coming through the turns in the middle sector. These are tricky to get right. The acceleration point is not necessarily the most obvious. They open on exit, but they are still very tight corners that you want to be... It feels like you should be braking hard for them, but you're not. And you're instead trying to carry the pace through the middle sector. Up he is in the middle sector. Has he got the pace now through the final sector? Hooks up the right-handers. Can he get the left right now? He gives it a bit of room on the inside. Didn't want to risk it. Had the improvement in hand. Now around the final corner. Has he got the pure pace to get himself in that positional or provisional pole fight. I don't think he can. He can only get P9. Meanwhile, behind him, the Red Bull of Midnight goes up to P12. As Chosen Tolby has retired from the pit lane. Never mind. That was a pit lane move, because we are running out of time in this qualifying session. 1:40 left. The two McLaren drivers rounding the final corner. Ragequit's been on a pretty stonking lap. He's currently sat in P17. His teammate Cartman starting his lap in P5 as there is a collision on track between Toast and Normbash. And that might warrant looking at. I didn't catch that, unfortunately. But I believe the Alpine of Normbash has collided with P3 Toast, and at least one of them has a penalty. That is unfortunate. Meanwhile, those that wanted to know about Rage Quit's lap, 22.5 joins the 22.5 club as everyone seems to be leaving it currently. Aston Martin crosses the line. I believe that was Ghost Rider to start his final flying lap. A Red Bull coming across the line is Golden Drift. He is also in contention for pole position maybe, or just a front row start. As across the line now comes Ducati to start his final flying lap. We're going to go on board with Jim Just Raged, who's just absolutely throwing the car through the first sector, but he's a little down on his personal best. But his personal best was a 22.1. Or 25.1. I can't count. 27.1? 27.1. It was actually a 27.1. Well, yeah, I'm learning. Now through the middle sector, as cars start crossing the line. The final McLaren to cross the line will be Cartman. Will Cartman be able to improve? No, he's going for one more flying lap, but it's too late. The times ran out. He invalidated, and thus he is not going to improve. Neither will Norm, neither will Vince, neither will Midnight, or Benzo, Ragequit, or Sinone. Amamo boxes. Meanwhile, the Alfa Romeo. It's not Ducati, it's the other one of Jim. Will come across the line. Will he break up the order? He goes P8, gets ahead of Norm, but doesn't really improve too much on the overall standings. The Aston behind him of Ghost Rider didn't really improve, stays last provisionally. Ducati has boxed. He will not finish his lap. He wasn't happy with it. Meanwhile, the Haas in P15 of Night just invalidates on the final corner. Unfortunate for him, Nicky G now across the line has only set a medium time run, will go P3, and the Williams duo miss out on a front row lookout by 0.004. I also like how best time has a completely different number to the time on the left. They are two separate numbers, so he must have been right on the cusp of that line. MRK, I believe, had a moment in the second to last corner. He's had to back out of his lap, as he is the last car to cross the line. Everyone else has finished. Cartman's actually gone around and done a second lap in the time it has taken. I believe we're just waiting for cars to be put into their pit garages at this point. I think it's just Toast we're waiting for. But that will seal it for the end of qualifying. It will be MRK on the front row alongside the Red Bull of Golden Drift. It'll be Nicky G and Toast, P3 at P4, but Toast has a 5 place grid penalty. Will put him down to P9. Normbash, who would start P10, will start P15 on the grid, which will boost up the likes of Vince, Benzo, Midnight, and Ragequit, and will also boost up the likes of Jim, John, and Cartman and Tolby, as well as Omamo. Armamo now actually ending up on the second row of the grid, despite everything. And here, real quick, just run through the incident so you can all be aware and see where it happened. The two collided with each other. I think both were on outlaps. Very, very disappointing. And that's kind of what happens in races like these. You do end up in situations like that where drivers do make contact with each other. MRK apparently went into the wall on top of it. Normbash was not on. Normbash was on an outlap, I believe, Miniko. So I don't know if that's That's good. Hey, Pat, it's going good so far. Nothing's broke. Apart from the fact that I forgot to have car sounds on. It's kind of bad. Either way, we've got ourselves a very interesting race. 20 cars will line up on the grid and 20 cars will take off from the grid. No Carlos Sainz's today. Everyone will be racing, so I think it's about time we get into the race as we get ready for lap number 1 of the race, and a quick rundown of the tyres so you can all see. They will be changing ahead of time as we get ready to go, but currently a big split of cars, majority of which are on the hard tyre, but a couple of them are swapping over to mediums, especially the front runners. Of Golden Drift and Nicky starting on mediums. Oh, Nicky swaps back to hards. Never mind. This is what I mean. Tyre strategy, when people change it, they have completely different strategies in the end. These are the little fun tidbits you miss sometimes. You don't actually see the strategy that goes on, but it's a one-stop race that could very easily turn into a two-stop with a safety car, maybe even a three-stop if you've got damage, and it's very easy to pick up penalties around here, so safe driving will be the request of the day from myself. I think that's a little note I'll have to leave in for next time. As now we get close to going underway for what should be a pretty fun Grand Prix, I think so. I think everyone here can agree. It's going to be an absolute banger as we get ready. 5 red lights. And we are underway for the first round of Tier 5 this season. MRK has got off to a great start. Covers across Golden Drift. Marmo has actually jumped up to 3rd as Nicky G has plummeted down the order to P6. Now through turn 1 and 2. Nicky G down to 7th even further as battles going on in the midfield as I think Ducati Ghost Rider's gone out of the race. There's been a big incident involving the AlphaTauris and for Ghost Rider and the Aston Martin safety car is out. And that is unfortunate. A 5-second time penalty for a severe collision for Ducati in the end as Nicky has actually got past Jim. I wonder if he ever took him under the yellow flags and had to let him through as the field bunches up into the hairpin. Chaos on lap 1. About what we expected, in all honesty. It is bound to happen at races like these, but at the front of the field the grid is mostly the same apart from an awful start from the second Williams driver. Nicky G was going on to the mediums, changed to hards, and maybe that change in start line grip might have cost him there and has pushed him down to P6. Meanwhile, Golden Drift didn't get off to the best of starts either. Amamo, though, great jump from him up to P3. Was supposed to start P5, so has made the most of that additional spot gained. Meanwhile, person that was meant to start there, Toast, is still in P9, sat behind John Does Work in the Mercedes. And the other driver who lost places off that start, Norm Bash, has gone down to P18 because he was involved in the incident that occurred. It's a bit of a nightmare start for a lot of teams. I'd be interested to see who pits. John, I believe. No, John hasn't pit. It's an Alpine. Alpine of Benzo has pit. I wonder if he's got front wing damage. Ducati stays out, can't service 5 seconds, but Bouncy and Vince both pit. And I wonder if either of them have picked up front wing damage in the incident on lap 1. I'll be interested to see now what tyres they go on to. They have to double stack, and yes, it is a front wing change for at least one of the 2 cars, as Bouncy does come out of the pits. Minico informing me that they both have to serve and get a new front wing, and there it is. Being teleported onto the car. I really don't think I should be looking at that. Meanwhile, we're on the safety car, so let's all relax for a moment. Let's all take a breather. A chaotic start to the race, to say the least. Benzo still in P17 here. It's not been a good start for either Alpine or AlphaTauri. Both teams right at the back with both their drivers. But Ghost Rider would have been last on the grid, was the slowest qualifier, but just got caught out, I think, by a chaotic turn 1, turn 2 situation. You've got to be careful in these sorts of turns. You don't want to be making a move into turn 1 or 2 this early on that could end in the ways that it has for all those drivers. It's a catastrophic mistake from anyone involved. As you can see, MRK revving the brakes there. Trying to get some temp into those hard tyres. We'll quickly pull up all the tyres so you can have a look at them. Of course, we've got a couple of drivers in the top 5 that aren't on hard tyres. Everyone but MRK, which is a terrifying prospect for the man who commentated Tier 6, saw the strategy that took place there, and decided to send it as well. Meanwhile, everyone who goes on to mediums, I assume, to do a medium stint towards the end, or potentially even a soft run if necessary. But all the ways down the grid, a couple of movers, a couple of shakers, as in comes Normbash, who pits. And I wonder if Normbash is pitting now because he had front wing damage as well. I can't see from this camera angle, we can only look at his rear wing. That's not useful. But we'll see if he needs a new front wing, and I don't know. I don't think they're bringing out a new front wing. No, he's just pitting through a set of mediums. Sees that he's at the back of the grid and decides, no, fresh rubber is what I need. It's smart, potentially, here to go for that two-stop strategy, medium towards the end. You know, it would have paid if I'd have paid attention to what, you know, tyre Normbash was on. Would have really helped. Either way, shall we have a look and see who's been the big movers? Sinone, one of the bigger movers, up from P10, up from P14 to P10, is now in the points. Cartman up 2 off the line because of Nicky G's fall. Tolby got caught out by Nicky G. I think they were not too far. I think they were on the same row, actually. Nicky being in 3rd, yeah, might have slowed Tolby down and given Cartman a great run off the line. So the McLaren team probably cheering on a little bit right now with the situation they have. Meanwhile, a bit further down, John drops behind Jim off the line. Jim, who was pushing for a P6 as well, so that Alfa Romeo does have some pace in its car. And another big winners, of course, being the people at the back that benefited from the situation involving Ghost Rider, Vince, Normbash, and Benzo. The entirety of Alpine and AlphaTauri and an Aston Martin. Which is, by the way, the safety car for this weekend. Takes over, I believe, for the Mercedes, that would traditionally be doing it. You can tell the difference between the two cars because one's green and one's red. That was a bit sarcastic. Sorry, that was a bit unnecessary. Either way, we're getting ready for the restart now, so we'll swap this over from position change to tyre wear so we can have a look and see. It will be interesting to see where MRK goes. The optimal spot to go is pretty much the final corner, but it could be as soon as we see just the safety car now into the pit lane. It is now on pit lane road, so he could go at any point, and he has gone, and Golden Drift's gone with him. Now heading down towards turn 1 as they round the final corner for the first full, hopefully, lap of racing here at the Qatar Grand Prix. So I think the Williams of Nicky G has gone very wide out of the exit. We look down the grid as Camus has to go defensive. Golden Drift looking for a move around the outside on those fresh medium tyres. Let's go on board with him now to see if he can make a move. Meanwhile, down the order, Ducati's got past Knight into turn 1. He's now up to P13. He has a 5 second to serve though when he eventually does have to make his first pit stop, preferably I would assume onto medium tyres. Meanwhile, the battle between Rage Quit and Midnight also going on down the field, and Toast trying to get past John does work but can't do so despite the tyre advantage as MRK is pulling away at the front already from the pack. Let's have a look back as Sinone already gets a 3 second time penalty, but Nicky G is the man currently that's in a bit of danger. He's got a whole train of cars chasing him down. Jim just raged, John does work, and Toast all sat right behind him. Toast wouldn't have outqualified him, but would have been on the same road as him had he not gotten that penalty. So it'll be interesting to see if he can hang on now and get past these cars in front. He is on the fresher tyre as well, as you can see the wobble in the back for John as he tries to keep it together. Rage Quit now up to P11 as well. As I think Ducati's had a mistake. Yes, he has. Ducati fell down to P15. He's back up to P14. Midnight P13 currently as well. Sat right in front as MRK will lead the first full lap of this race. But the battle right now potentially could be right in the background. I just saw that. There are cars side by side heading into turn 1. This is chaotic. 6 cars all within touching distance. as the Alpine of Benzo falls a little bit. Can't make the move done. Meanwhile, the Red Bull of Midnight battling to carry, who will get the move done up to P13 as the Alpine squeezed off there by Bouncy, who will stick it into P15 ahead of the Ferrari of Angry Shadow. Oh, as Midnight gets clocked up, he's gone off the track. Midnight goes off slightly. It's allowed the Alpha Tauri to get through. Now the Ferrari around the outside. Can Angry Shadow keep it there? A little bit of a wobble on the exit. Burning the ERS. Holds it tight to the inside. Midnight, I don't think, has a choice in the matter. Has to back out. Benzo almost got past him, but Midnight's keeping it there. Now turns to the inside for the left-hander onto the long run into Sector 3. Will keep the position. Great job from him. Meanwhile, Vince behind senses opportunity. He's been holding off on using his ERS. Everyone else around him has burned a fair bit, but he hasn't been able to make a move so far. As a 3-second time penalty comes out for Nicky G. And that was about expected as DRS is enabled. Meanwhile at the front, speaking of Nicky G, there's a battle going on behind him. Here's John Does Work's perspective of the battle for P6 right now as Jim and Toast all close in. Jim sends it up the inside. Coming through the corner. Meanwhile, John's actually under pressure from Sinone, who's right there. But the battle in front of them is ridiculous. Side by side, the Williams and Alfa Romeo make contact. And now there's more contact. And it's the Mercedes and Haas around. It's Toast and John who go around. And Toast's bad luck continues here in this Grand Prix as the Mercedes almost gets wiped out. Will not. They will luckily get going again as Takari has pit. Or has potentially just spun as Normbash is now right at the very back of the field. Very unfortunate. There's been more contact. Benzo and Angry Shadow have gone off. Everything kicked off this lap. Absolutely everything. Ridiculous stuff. There's still a battle going on for P7 currently. Jim has gotten away from Nicky, who is still holding up this train, but the train has now advanced to 4 more cars. It's brought Sinone, Rage Quit, and Knight in, as I see him lagging all over the shop. Might just be my connection, to be fair. As Sino gets a 3-second. Goes a bit too off the track, but we'll look for the better exit. Has got one on the Williams. And we'll pull past the Williams, heading onto the straight with the DRS as well to pull further ahead. Now Rage Quit's going to go for the move. We'll get the move done on 1. Might look for 2 here, and actually does look for 2. Up the insider to turn 1. Won't be able to stick it though, as instead it will just hang on to the Aston Martin. Meanwhile, Nicky now under threat from the Haas behind of Knight, who is trying to squeeze around the outside of 2. That doesn't happen. Now heading up the hill to 4. Not able to find a move. Maybe into the hairpin. We'll go on board with Knight as he looks to try and make the move. As Nicky is all over the shop. And I mean that in the politest sense possible. A lock up there ahead from Rage Quit. But that's not going to help anyone but himself. Meanwhile, all of this has been going on. Quietly, we've got a battle for the lead. Cartman's got past Amamo. That too. That battle's still going on for P3. But quietly, Golden Drift has caught up to the back of MRK here and is in the fight for P1. It's Nicky's leg. Alright, Amamo does get a 3 seconds, so that basically secures Cartman in P3 for the moment. But meanwhile, the battle at the front, MRK under pressure now from Golden Drift. The gap 8.5 tenths coming down the main straight. Let's see what that difference is at the end of it. Is Golden able to close the gap? No, only down to 3.5 tenths, but still, that's a half a second gain on the straight. So if he's just a little bit closer, he might feel confident enough to send it up the inside into turn number 1. Meanwhile, behind, Cartman still under pressure as Nicky G now battling with Knight once again into turn 1. The two go side by side through 2. Will Nicky hold him? He's given him room. Knight though, oh, squeezed on the inside as Amamo's got back past Cartman, heading into turn, I believe that's 6. The tight hairpin here at the end of Sector 1. As a yellow flag in Sector 1, it's for an Alpine. It's a bad day for the Alpine boys. Benzo's gone off this time. I think he's made a mistake out of the exit of 1. Just span the rears up. And it's so unfortunate for them. They were hoping for a better weekend than this, but they've just not had it. Meanwhile, Bouncy, who I want to point out started P20 and got involved in a lap 1 incident, is now on the back of Nicky G and hunting for a point. Oh, nice squeezed there. You can see this. This is a very, very brutal battle going on right now. Meanwhile, behind them, in P13, a battle for nil points, nil points, 0 real anything but honour, really. Midnight and John are absolutely going at it as well, as Cartman has gotten back past Amamo, heading down the main straight, and has secured P1. We kind of need to watch it. Knight goes past Nicky, this time potentially for good, as now we look at the AlphaTauri behind of Bouncy, who sends it up the inside, gets the job done clean as a whistle, but almost loses the back end on exit, will hold it together, and those medium tyres are still sticking to the road quite well after 7 or 8 laps. Meanwhile, Midnight, early box for the other Red Bull driver. Very early box, in fact, as Ducati also pits. Ducati looking potentially, might have damage. We'll have to see it. It is damage. It's a completely gone front wing, but we have to wait the full 5 seconds before we can actually do anything to the car. Unfortunate for the Alfa Romeo team. One is sailing high and one is falling lower and is now closer to being lapped than catching the car in front. Speaking of the front of the field, there is a battle going on for P5 now. Tolby has caught the back of Amamo, as Cartman receives a 3-second time penalty, so that's brought Amamo back into the fight, and technically brought Tolby into the battle for P3. The Ferrari driver, who was expected to finish highly in this league, in this tier this season, will burn the ERS, use the DRS, to sail by comfortably into the braking zone into P4, and will now be chasing down the McLaren of Cartman, who will just about keep the car on track for P number 3. Meanwhile, Sidon and Jim battling for 7th, as we get a little bit of a reprieve here, as Bouncy has actually been re-overtaken by Knight. Oh, sorry, no, Bouncy is chasing down Knight still. Sorry, they were ahead of Nicky G. But these are the real only battles on track currently. Everyone else is sort of settled into a rhythm of sorts. There's a bit of a gap from the back of, I believe it's Vince in P12 to the next car of John Does Work, who is now battling Toast for that P13 spot. But now we're starting to look towards strategy being a major factor in the game and in this race. We saw a lot of drivers start on hard tyres, and some of the ones that were involved in the early incidents, like the Alpines and the AlphaTauris, were on hards and they've pit to mediums. So the likelihood is they're actually going to go medium here to the end of the race, as Knight will receive a 3-second tyre penalty, and that's just going to be music to Bouncy's ears as he's all over his rear end through the long right-handers, forcing him wide, forcing him to make mistakes. Has actually got the move done ahead of the DRS line, which I'm not sure I agree with the logic of that, because now, if all is correct, we're going to see a Haas open their rear wing and go right back past. And we do. Knight goes past Bouncy like it's nothing. Straight line speed advantage. And has been able to take back the position, but Bouncy's hanging it round the outside, goes off the track, and will have to settle in back into 10th place. Unfortunate there for the AlphaTauri, was trying, has the pace advantage here in the corners, but just seems to pick the wrong moment to go for the move. Kind of needs to learn to utilise a bit of patience here to get the move done, but hasn't done so to this point, just due to the outrageous speed advantage they seem to have in that final sector. Meanwhile, the battle for 6th still raging on. Sinon, is still closing the gap to Jim Just Rage. Was down to as low as 3.5 tenths earlier this lap. It's opened up again now to 7 as they come around into the final sector. The gap at the front, 1.3. MRK has led every single lap of this race comfortably and is on the way to lapping Ducati in P19 as we speak. But the battle at the front is this battle right here between two hard runners. So these two will be battling for the rest of the race. Now, can Sinon get close enough to get the move done. He's actually got a really good exit out of the final corner. Jim's starting to burn ERS to try and keep ahead, but Sidon's not got any in the tank. So this is pure straight line speed and DRS. Can he get the move done into turn 1? Pulls out late, goes alongside, forces Jim wide, and gets the job done clean as you like. Great overtake from Sidon to get the position and get up into P6. Meanwhile, Vince has got past Nicky G on the straight. He's up to P11. And Bouncy's finally got past Knight. He took his time, picked his spot, and got the move done. Meanwhile, behind them, Toast and John still close together. No real movement from either driver, though. They are both about equal pace so far. Toast might have the slight pace advantage still on those mediums, but they are getting into the range now where the medium tyre starts to lose a bit of its power, starts to lose a bit of its advantage over the hard runners. So we may be starting to see the hard runners start to come back now at the front of the field. I say that, Bouncy is almost caught up to Rage Quit for P8. Here, coming through now into the fast sweeping right-handers. This is where we'll see if the pace advantage is starting to be with the hard tyres or if it's still with the mediums. And by the looks of it, it is still with the medium tyre. Very clearly, as Bouncy's all over the road at the exit there, but he's in the DRS now. And that will also do double duty. It'll protect him from Knight as well as allow him to attack forward. This is a yellow flag, and I believe it's for Benzo again. And it is for Benzo. He's had a moment in the middle sector as Angry Shadow receives a 3-second time penalty. I feel like I don't need to call those out anymore, but let's go on board with our race leader. Currently got about 39-40% battery as Toast has actually got the move done into turn 1 on John Does Work. But we are getting close to that pit stop window now, and I'm beginning to wonder what the strategy is for the lead pack, for these leading two drivers, because Golden Drift is on the medium tyres. He's had a bit of a moment through there and has lost a bit of time to MRK. But he's about equal with him, currently on pure pace. It's also quite laggy, so let's not sit on his car for quite a while. As Golden Drift actually gets a 3-second time penalty, and well, that's revealed the strategy to me. At this point, he needs to box early. He needs the undercut. Needs to push it that way. Meanwhile, in the battle for 8th, it's starting to heat up as Bouncy receives a 3-second time penalty. I believe Tolby, though, is the first of the medium runners to pit on lap 13. Coming on to lap 14, he will box for a set of hards to the end. That's about what we expect for the medium runners. He's pitted early, though. That'll give him the pace advantage on this outlap. And will also, as long as he doesn't come out in the traffic of the two cars coming down the main straight in Toast and John, will be, I feel, capable of getting an undercut here on some of the drivers in that pack ahead of him. Pit from P5, if I'm remembering correctly, or P6. So it will now be interesting. This is the driver to watch for the rest of this now. How he does in his stint is going to be super important to the drivers in front. Meanwhile, the battle at the back as Nicky's hit. Oh, Knight's hit the back of Bouncy, sorry. Didn't mean to call out Nicky like that. Nicky did absolutely nothing wrong. But Knight has hit the back of Bouncy into the braking zone. Might have actually caused himself front wing damage, but it's definitely opened the gap back up. They were so close to each other, this trio of Rage Quit, Bouncy and Knight. And now Bouncy pushing like, well, you know, I don't know what pushes. Really like a piston? Yeah, pushing like a piston. That's what we'll say. As in comes Golden Drift, following suit from Tolby, trying to cover him off here. He knows he's got to get that undercut early. He needs to get onto those hard tyres. He needs to get the advantage on MRK, and he will do so with this strategy. Cool. Anyone else going to follow him in? It'll be the AlphaTauri of Bouncy. Bouncy follows him in, as does Knight, and it'll be interesting to see if Knight has to get front wing changed because of the incident. In behind, Toast comes in as well. There's enough of a gap. I think they can pull off the Haas double stack here. He doesn't get a speeding penalty coming in. Neither does John. But it'll be interesting now to see as in comes Norm Basher as well. From P16, he boxes. Meanwhile, Midnight just runs a bit wide there at the final corner. He's on hards. There's no way he takes those hards 19 laps, right? He's already done 5 laps on him. Well, either way, he's up to P13. He comes out ahead of the Haas of Knight. And if that's where the current crop of cars that are in that battle for on track P7 is currently, I'm a little worried. Because Bouncy is now up in P11. So, yes, I think Knight did have to get a front wing change. Because he is a whole 7.5 seconds back from Bouncy, who is out ahead of Angry Shadow. Meanwhile, Golden Drift sat behind Nicky G in this sector as MRK pits. And I think that might have just handed MRK the lead of the race come the exit of the pit strategy window. Cartman's boxed. Omamo stayed out for another lap on those mediums, as has Sinon on the hards. Jim stays out. In comes, I don't think anyone else has pit. Meanwhile, Golden Drift now comes through. Where is he compared to Camus? That's Camus ahead of him on the track. And that means Camus come out back into the net P1 on fresher medium tyres that will go to the end of the race. Brilliant strategy call from MRK. New to pit the same lap. But those hards, you've got a feeling he's got them cooked up already. Golden Drift, if he's going to make a move, he'll have to make it almost immediately. He cannot afford to make sure... He cannot afford to sit behind MRK for another lap. He has to get the job done here. Otherwise, he is going to be in serious trouble. He's gone fastest first sector of anybody. So he's doing everything in his power to get right behind MRK and force him to make a mistake on cold mediums that will be warming up as the lap goes on. The unfortunate part about it is MRK's got a car right in front of him for the pit window. And that is the AlphaTauri of Vince, who is yet to pit on those medium tyres. And it's going to give a straight line advantage to Camus. It's going to protect him from the potential onslaught of the Red Bull. This is the battle for the lead. In comes Vince. Will he stay ahead of him heading up to that DRS line? That's what that white line on the track is. We'll see as they come across the straight. We'll look at the rear wing. Does it open? It does! And Camus has managed to stay ahead. He's burning ERS. He knows Golden's going for it. Golden's not burning at all though. MRK now out of battery, coming into turn 1. Can Golden stick with him for one more lap? That's the question now, because he knows MRK is running low. He's about 15% on that battery. That's what the flashing light means. It doesn't mean he's out or he's ran out for the lap. It means he's at 15% or lower. That's the other time it can flash. And so Golden is now looking at this with a potential golden opportunity right in front of him for that race win. He still needs to get ahead of MRK though. Meanwhile, out front, Omamo is still going on this set of medium tyres. And I find that... Oh, sorry, no, that's Rage Quit. This is Omamo on the set of medium tyres that he has been nursing for 16 laps. You can't think he's going for softs, can you? Potentially. It's a risky strategy, considering where everyone else has paid out. On the track. Currently Nicky G also yet to pit. Is under pressure from Cartman now. Is defending as well because he knows that every position he can hold up might actually end up benefiting his teammate because Cartman is pushing on those hards, and the longer he can hold him behind, the further MRK gets up the road. Meanwhile, MRK has actually got DRS again. He's got lucky a second time on the straight, has caught Rage Quit at the right time, and actually has DRS, as in comes Omamo for a set of softs. He's actually gone for the call. A ridiculous play. You have to assume Rage Quit and Nicky are doing the same thing at this point. But now, Camus wasn't able to get past Rage Quit. And what this has done is it's actually put a very awkward spot for the Williams driver. He has to get the move done because, again, Golden's right there. Go on board with Golden now. The flashing red light more prominent than it's ever been. Golden might go for the move. No, decides better of it. Rage Quit being pushed basically around the corner. Those old hards have to be falling off of, well, I think about 17 different cliffs. One for every lap he's driven on them. As Angry Shadow, on the fresh set of softs, he's in the Ferrari in P16, so he's trying to steal fastest lap away. I feel like Omamo might get that back at some point, considering his position on track. He's ahead of Bouncy currently in P8. but he is on a fresh set of rubber. There's a yellow flag in the middle sector, and it's for midnight. The Red Bull driver has gone round, coming out of the exit of turn 5, and it's dropped him fairly down the order. I think it's dropped him at least 3 places. He is now completely out of the running for points as Rage Quit pits from the lead of the race. And now, here's the move. If it's gonna happen, it happens now. Golden goes to the outside, heading into turn 1. He's already ahead before the braking zone, and the Red Bull will lead the first lap he has for the entire race. A great strategy call to go for the undercut. Got those really hard to warm up hard tyres warmed up early, and got very, very unlucky not to make the move earlier. That puts him now net P1, but again, MRK is going to have the pace advantage on those mediums. As this stint goes on, he will still have the better grip. And so, potentially a little bit of gamesmanship here from MRK. Sit behind, save the tyres. Don't need to push as hard, because he knows he has to nurse his a little bit more than Golden has to nurse theirs. Meanwhile, behind them, Cartman, P3, Tolby, with that undercut. I mentioned this might be a thing. It has become a thing now for him. He's right there with Cartman for P3. So this could be a podium for the Ferrari boys if they get fortunate enough. Meanwhile, Rage Quit came out of the pits on a set of softs. He is in P11, looking to try and strip Vince of what is currently a P10 position. As now Tolby battling Cartman all the way around. He's within half a second, coming in towards the DRS detection point. But speaking of DRS detection points, Golden Drift gets another 3-second time penalty, and MRK is just going to sit behind. He doesn't need to attack, doesn't need to use DRS, he doesn't have any to burn either way, and will just relax on that set of medium tyres, save the energy, save the tyres. MRK is driving safe. As Cartman receives a 3-second as well now. So now he is under major pressure from Dolby, and it's paying dividends for the Ferrari, who is set for a P3 if everything stays the same currently. Doesn't need to make the move on track. But we've seen drivers in the past drive erratically for the sake of pushing for something that isn't there. Nicky G, by the way, has set more laps on the hards than any F1 race, like real life F1 race runner has this entire weekend. I want to point that out because it's a ridiculous statistic. That you can run more laps on hards than you can in a real life F1 in a 50% race. But you can look at the tyres, they're graining like crazy. They are completely gone at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up getting a puncture on this lap. He has to be pitting soon because 19 laps on a set of tyres is ridiculous. Meanwhile, MRK, we mentioned he might not want to make the move. I don't think he has a choice at this point. He might have to turn the DRS off completely. He's too close to the back of Golden Drift. We'll settle him behind. We'll pull to the inside. He's going for the move. Golden Drift does not defend too hard. He knows he can afford to sit behind because he's basically locked in at 1-2 with him. As Tolby has fell a fair bit back. I think he's had a bit of a mistake in the middle of the lap. As in comes Nicky for a set of soft tyres to the end of the race. The Williams team probably delighted with how Nicky has driven so far to be involved at the front. Nicky's actually got a front wing change. And I wonder if that's why he stayed out for so long. So we could make the most of the softs at the end, knowing he had the front wing change coming. It's unfortunate though, because it has dropped him down to at least 14th, potentially 15th. As here comes Angry Shadow down the main straight. He's also on a set of softs, 5-lap hold. It is going to be up to speed very quickly. Don't think he'll get the challenge off though. Meanwhile at the front, MRK ahead of Golden Drift and starting to edge away. This is exactly what we expected to see. But it took him a couple laps to fire those mediums up. And now Golden's slipping back. He's actually outside of the DRS window at this point. Over 1.1 seconds the gap as they cross the DRS line. MRK has broken DRS to Golden Drift. And if that hasn't secured the race, I don't know what will. Meanwhile, behind, Amamo gets a 3-second time penalty. He's pushing to get ahead of Sinon here for P5. But it won't really matter because of all the penalties he's just accumulated trying to get by. No ERS to use, only DRS, goes to the inside, gives a lot of comfortable room. And Sinone doesn't battle it. No point. No point fighting that one. Even though he has the ERS in the tank, he knows that the position will just come back to him at the end of the race. Meanwhile, Jim, quietly simmering in P7 right now, has not really been involved in the race. Yeah, let's have a look at the penalties, actually, whilst we're here. 6 second. Oh! Yeah, no. Sinone knows he can let him through. Yeah, I knew I was right on that one. But yeah, so a lot of 3 seconds, a couple of 6. I don't think it's necessarily going to affect finishing standings. Tolby is still set for a P3, but he has dropped back a fair amount. 2.9 the gap now to the front runner. Yeah, tyres at this point are completely unnecessary. We know who's on softs, we know who's on mediums, we know who's on hards. Meanwhile, down the order, Vince, driving a completely penalty-free race, is currently sat in P10 and is sat 0.6 behind Rage Quit. So it could be, after a disastrous opening lap from the AlphaTauri boys, as I get my invite to start Tier 3, which starts in 15 minutes. Love the scheduling conflict. It appears as though Vince might end up just getting the move done on track for a net P9. Which is a great accomplishment if he can. Meanwhile, Sinone has now got back past Amamo down the main straight. It's not really going to affect things at the end of the day. Rage Quit not defending. Vince not really closing either. It's just sitting back. There's no point in attacking at this point if you're in that AlphaTauri, as Bouncy receives a 3 second, and that's not good for Bouncy because now that puts him at the mercy of Vince, basically. The gap behind is 4.6 to Vince, who he would then end up finishing behind. So it would be AlphaTauri 8-9, but it would be Vince ahead of Bouncy, who arguably has had the better pace all weekend. Meanwhile, down the order, Benzo has got the move done on Midnight. I think Midnight has boxed, and I'm not sure here if he's boxing for a new fastest lap or if he's boxing to retire. Red Bull, it's just been a bit of a handful. Speaking of handfuls, Ducati had the pace. We saw the great overtakes he made in that first stint, but just a couple of mistakes, a couple of errors on his front. He couldn't knock those out, and that has caused a bit of an issue. Amaro gets a 3 second. That just now puts him firmly out of the way. In fact, I think that's now dropped him behind Bouncy on track, which means now it's a 7-8 for AlphaTauri. Barely, but a 7-8. Benzo receives a 3 second. He's not involved in the front runners at all. Another driver who you have to feel sorry for, Norm Bash. Got involved in that lap 1 incident. Has driven a clean race otherwise, but has just never had the pace to get involved at the front because of it. He's just been out of the running. And it's so unfortunate for someone and for an entire team to have just such a disappointing weekend. It's very much at the whims of luck and change. But the only safety car so far, there was not a single safety car from what I watched of Tier 6. Unless there was one very late. Well, Benzo might have actually just caused one. And he has! And now the race has completely shifted. Benzo's gone off right there into the wall. He's disappeared now. And I wonder if that's going to change things. Oh boy. The race leaders are the next ones to the pit lane. Now we need to see what happens. Does MRK pit for softs? He kind of has to at this point. Will do. Will Golden follow him in? He will. Cartman, not got any penalties, or has 6 seconds of penalties, probably will follow the leaders in. The question mark is Tolby. Tolby doesn't need to box, but will. MRK gets a 5 second for speeding in the pit lane. The race leader has a 5 second drive through. The timing of that is ridiculous. Amamo pits, Sinone pits, Jim stays out on those old mediums. Now we kind of have to look at the tyres again. Sorry for the penalty lovers. Jim's on 8 lap old mediums and is now P3 with a net P1. Vince could absolutely benefit. A lot of drivers could benefit from this. Anyone that doesn't have penalties right this second is going to benefit. That's the wrong thing to be changing. There we go. I'm learning as I'm going. You're speeding the pits because there is no pit limiter on here. It's not an assist that we have on in this league. It is something you have to manually control. And because of that, it's an awkward pit entry point where you brake on the line, it will make you speed. If MRK has misjudged it because of that, it is unfortunate, but it does happen. It's happened to me, it's happened to the best of us, and I'm not the best of us, I can tell you that much. But the point being that we may have a completely chaotic final 5. Because the final 4 laps of this race, actually it's going to be 3. It's going to be 3 laps. I think MLK had a feeling that some drivers would stay out. That's my thought, Sam. I would have to be the only thing in my mind. Maybe the pressure from Golden behind. Maybe Golden sort of, you know, having him right in his rear wing mirror. That's really hard to say for some reason. Might have thrown him off the virtual mirror, potentially. You never know with these sorts of things. We won't know until we hear from him, or potentially we might not hear from him at this rate, because of the situation. Looking down the rest of the field, there is a very good chance MRK is not on the podium. It's a possibility. A lot of the front runners, though, apart from Tolby, who, by the way, Tolby is the runner right now that you need to watch out for, because Tolby's on a fresh set of softs and he's got no time penalties. He is the one that will benefit the most from this, I feel. Has everyone else boxed? Yes, everyone boxed. Knight boxes for a pair of mediums because I don't think he had a pair of softs left. Either that or he completely forgot to change the tyre. One of the two. Either way, he's going to be holding up John and Toast behind, who Toast now has a chance to get back in the race after everything that's happened with him. The spin early on in the race, the qualifying penalty. It would recover what has been a pretty turgid and damp weekend for him in the middle of a desert, if he's able to pull that off. Anyway, let's look at the front of the field. MRK will lead us round once again. It's very interesting. MRK has led almost every single lap of this race, and yet I feel like has never been more under threat than right now. Even when Golden Drift had gotten ahead, there was really no pressure on MRK. Now the pressure is here, and it is in his face, and it is an Aston Martin safety car. Actually, I do need to check that. Is that an Aston? MRK, can you get a bit closer so I can see if that's an Aston? I don't know if he's watching the stream. Giants, if he is, let me know. Just a little. It's a Ramco. It's definitely an Aston. Well, to be fair, Ramco's the wall sponsor, isn't it? Pedantics doesn't really matter. I'm just getting off track here. MLK could still win this, absolutely. I think him and Golden are going to be battling all the way to the line because Golden just needs a bit of a brake check there from MRK. I think the interesting fact here, though, is the fact that Jim is there in P3 on those mediums. He is the litmus test now for every other soft runner behind him. Because Jim doesn't have penalties. Jim just needs to play it safe. Everyone behind him is going to be desperate to get by. Because they all see the fact that the leader has a 5-second time penalty and everyone else around them has penalties. Tolby could still win just by being in that fight. Not even winning the race on track. He could be P7 on track and still win this race. That's how important not having penalties is. I mentioned that ahead of time. Cleanness and safety will win you a race around Qatar. Right now, it is on MRK to try and win it for himself. He will go very early, same spot as before. Golden will burn every bit of his battery that he can to try and get the move. Cardman already alongside Jim. Has to wait to the line though. Has to wait till it goes green before he can pull ahead and get into that podium spot. On track. Ducati gets a 3-second at the final corner. I don't even know how you managed that. Good job. But now we keep going. Cartman's up to P3. Jim is under immense amount of pressure. Tolby needs to get past him ASAP if he's going to have any chance of winning this race. He may look for the move early. Camu's still hanging on. Bouncy's up to P7. He's got ahead of Sinon. Oh, just about. We're heading into that corner. We'll go backwards now through the grid. The AlphaTauri of Vince, who is also in a fight for the front of the grid, is sat behind Rage Quit. but the front two have taken off, and Jim is still there, and Toby's been overtaken by Amamo. No, hangs on in there for P5. But the gap has opened up. I think it's now, I'm going to change it to leader. I feel like that's more important at this point, because now that helps us with the penalty situation. The current situation is this. Camus will win by 0.3 as we come around the final few laps here. He's got the gap to Golden Drift. We're going to have one lap of DRS, by the way. I want to point that out. That's the more terrifying fact. Amamo's got 12 seconds. He needs to get through because otherwise he's going to get swamped by the guys behind him. No! And there's been contact! Oh, it's a huge crash! Everyone's gone off. Bouncy's out. Nicky's out. Toby's around. I think that's Jim as well's involved. Sino's had to take avoiding action. He's in the gravel. That is a horrific crash. And it all stemmed from Toby going into the back of Jim. That is ridiculous. 2 laps to go. The battle at the front is not over, by the way. Golden Drift is back in the fight with Camus. He just needs to keep in DRS. The person behind them is Cartman, who is also involved in the fight. There's a yellow flag and Vince is round. Great timing on the camera. Good job, camera crew, aka me. There's a huge fight going on. I need to keep an eye on this. We're going to watch on board from Vince now. This gaggle. There's 2 cars that go off. There goes the caddy in shadow. Right in front of our very eyes. Vince, take us through. Camus got a 3-second. Camus got a 3-second time penalty. Golden Drift is going to win the race. Regardless now. There's a... Oh, down goes John. John goes round. Vince is back up to P10 somehow. P9, sorry, there's Norm Bash there right ahead of him. This is chaos. And I love it. I love every second of it. Toast, by the way, has somehow ended up in P4 after all of that. Toast, the guy who has proverbially been screwed out of this race by contact, has somehow got to P4 and is going to be P4 on track. Meanwhile, John's out of the race. He's crashed it at the second to last corner. He's gone round into the wall. The Alfa Romeos have been screwed by this. The Alpines have got a hope in hell with Normbash now. Here comes more battles. Sends it, does Knight, up the inside to P5. Unnecessary move, I'll be quite honest. Here's the fun part though. If Cartman can gain about half a second on this lap to MRK, he will finish P2. And Camus will finish down in P3. We'll see now as we come around. This is the important factor. Camus going for the gap. Camus got it up to 1.2. He's got ERS to burn, but so does Golden. Golden's got more in the tank. Meanwhile, behind, Vince is now right behind Amamo. I wouldn't go for the move, Vince. Stay there. Just take the P5. Just take it and don't fight it. You don't need to fight. Safety first. Midnight, meanwhile, is battling alongside him. Wide goes Amamo. Midnight now. Trying to box him in, can't do so, has to back out. But at the front of the field, it will be a Williams across the line first. It will be a Williams who will take the race win on track. But it will be a Red Bull who will consume first place. Chaos reigns at Qatar as Toast almost bins it out the final corner. Will somehow finish in P4 after all of this race. A great race from him. Knight will finish P5 on track, but it will not be P5 for long. Vince will finish in P5. Rage quits 6th. Knight will finish in 7th. Knight, who has already come round turn 1 at that point. Knight side down to 8th because of Normbash. So Alpine and AlphaTauri got 5 and 6 in the end. What a chaotic race. It was quiet for a bit. There were battles, there was quiet moments, and then it just rocketed up. Vince gets driver of the day from starting down the order outside of the points on the start line, having that incident in turn 1, and then somehow, someway climbing to P5 in the end. Great points all for AlphaTauri, great points all for Alpine considering where they were as well during the race. Ridiculous stuff from them. Oh my god. Can I take a breath yet? Am I allowed to breathe? Because I'd like to breathe. Congratulations to the Red Bull driver who takes home the win. We're going to be watching this one. Oh, my lord. Right. I guess I got to go get interviews. The issue is, I don't really have an interview box because I don't have a teammate. I don't even know what to do at this point. Congratulations to everyone, by the way, racing in that. That was an absolute wonderful race from start to finish. As we now try, I want to get a last look at the standings before we're done. I don't even know if it's going to load at this point. Everyone's already left. Everyone's already gone. Toast's gone. The lobby's updated. I don't think we're going to see another screen. So, let's shift it over to something that you can see a little bit more of. Let's pull this up. Yeah. A chaotic race, to say the least. Yeah, it popped up and it disappeared. Of course it did. But an absolute wild race. I'm going to go join a different one. But before we do that, let's quickly try and grab an interview. I want to get an interview with Camus. And I want to get an interview real quick with the eventual race winner. And I've forgotten his name. Would you believe I've forgotten the name of the man that won the race? How have I done that? It's Golden Drift. That was it. I want to get them in. I will miss a bit of qualifying. Who cares? Who cares about qualifying? You don't need to qualify well. Wow. Ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I cannot believe that race has happened that way. Chat, help. I don't know what to think of that one. If you haven't already, I would say go check out Tier 3. They're about to get going. Tier 4 should still be ongoing. We should be coming towards the last half hour of that race now. So that'll be a fun one to check in on. As we wait for people, if anyone will come in. But I don't think anyone is coming into the box. So I think we're going to have to call it here. But what a race to start the season. That's how you start a season, I feel like. Because that was pure chaos. From start to finish, forever. I don't think you can do much better than that. So, thank you all for watching. We'll hopefully see you all next week for what should be an absolute mad second race of the season. And the second race of the season, if you are wondering where we're going next week, we are going to Suzuka. We're going to Japan on the 15th of October. It'll be the same time-ish. Not really. It'll be at 7:30 British Standard Time where we go live. But from all of us here in the box, and by that I mean myself and the Dead Man, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.